conference play kicks off for the Beavers tomorrow. We take a look at the quarterback position and the surprise backup, Connor Blount. And has Colorado finally turned it around? A look at the similarities between the Beavers and the Buffs as they rebuild their programs. And Seth Collins continues to grow as a receiver. Why he spells trouble for opposing defenses. Hashtag Beavers football starts now.
Hashtag Beavers Football is brought to you by your local Toyota dealers. Toyota, let's go places.
Folsom Field, the site of this weekend's Pac-12 opener for Oregon State. The Beavers getting ready to take on Colorado, and we are breaking it all down for you here at Blitzlad in Southeast Portland. Welcome to Hashtag Beavers Football. I'm Amanda Maynard alongside Dusty Hara, Alex Brink. Guys, thanks for joining us tonight. Oregon State coming in off a loss over Boise State. Oregon losing to Colorado in what many are calling really a program-defining win for Colorado. What are some of your expectations as we look toward tomorrow's game?
Oh, wow. I just look at this game and it is where Oregon State wants to be in a year or two, right? What Colorado's been able to do under Mike McIntyre is it's been a slow build. Athletes came in early. They played them young. They struggled, and it was all part of the process that Mike McIntyre had. And to have that win at Oregon and on the road to kind of exercise the demons of year three, it was kind of get to the point where you're in games at the end, yet they hadn't figured out a way to close those tight games in those conference games. They did that against Oregon, and this is where Oregon State is. They're just a couple years behind what Colorado was. So my expectation is the Beavers to play hard, to be in the game late, and hopefully if you're tight enough at the end, they can do what the Buffs did to Oregon, which is finish them off.
Yeah, I think it's crucial that Oregon State starts fast, just because Colorado's been starting fast all year. And you know, we saw it last year with Colorado coming in and beating Oregon State at home. You know, this is a matchup where the two teams are fairly even athletically, but it's going to take a little bit of momentum from Oregon State to really get this win out there in Boulder.
Yeah, and from one high-paced offense to another in Boise State to Colorado, Gary Anderson weighed in on just what makes Colorado so tough.
Offensively, Colorado is a pace team, you know, but they don't think they're just, chuck it 60, 70, 80 times a game. That's not their deal. They want to run the ball. They want to throw the ball. They do want to play with pace, absolutely. They want to cause confusion, especially in the red zone, through formations, through play types. It's a good offense. I think they've done a nice job with it. I think they use their personnel extremely well. And, their points and how they're moving the ball down the field would show that.
And we are taking a look at Colorado's fast starts and our Widmer brothers brewing what's on tap. And like you mentioned, I mean, Colorado's been super dominant early on. You can see, they scored a touchdown on each of their opening drives, and they've outscored opponents 72-14 in the first quarter. Guys, what do you think is working for them?
Well, the tempo is the biggest thing. I mean, you watched versus Oregon last week. It was very similar to what we've seen of Oregon teams of the past. I mean, they were fast to the ball after a first down. They were after big plays. They were getting up on the ball and snapping it quick. And I think that causes a ton of problems for teams, for any team and any defense.
Well, this just probably better than anybody, Alex, is that when you are going in that opening drive stat is amazing because that shows you how well coached they are. That is a very well coached team because those are usually scripted plays. When you're going out that first drive, to be able to execute and just kind of the coach knows what he's going to expect on defense, that is impressive for the Colorado Buffaloes to go out and perform like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting. I've watched Colorado practice a few times, and in practice, they run after every play to the ball, which is pretty cool. And so they operate practice at a really, really fast tempo as well.
I mean, and on the flip side, Oregon State has struggled in the first and second quarters. I know Gary Anderson kind of was critical this week about those slow starts. What do you guys see going wrong with that offense?
I think they're young. I think it is basically you have a really young offense or defense that as you're getting out there, there's a little bit of jitters, which is part of it. And it's a little bit what looks like they play a little soft, right? They play a little soft. They back off a little bit because the coaching staff knows you don't want to put these guys in a situation where they get beat and then they all of a sudden start getting down on themselves. But what it allows really good offenses to do is what they've seen as good offenses is to put drives together because they got smart They've played a lot of really smart quarterbacks. I mean, be it Minnesota or Idaho State, who has a smart quarterback for an for SES level, and then you have Boise State. I mean, that's a tough run of quarterbacks to go against.
Yeah, and Boise's an incredibly tough matchup. So you look at that game last week, and, it's hard to say that could have gone a different way. But at the same time, I think, defensively, Oregon State needs to get on the ball, get their eyes in the right place, and utilize their athleticism because they are an athletic defense. They just need to get up there and get assigned right.
And it's almost like you can see the light switch when it goes off for all of them. And it's like, we got this. Yeah. Because they turn a corner in every single game where the defense starts to bow its back and they play as athletic as they look early, but they play with that confidence late too.
All right, a lot of interesting things going on with Oregon State. Up next, we're going to hear from Connor Blount, what his first action in Oregon State uniform was like.
That's what I've been. I mean, they've called me QB, number 12, throughout camp, and I think now they know my name, I'd say, yeah.
And who will be under center for Colorado? And is there any advantage for Oregon State?
We are searching as best we can. Even the public relations people here at Oregon State are unaware of who number 12 at quarterback is. And we're told it's Connor Blount, a freshman walk-on. And they roll him out. He lets it fly into a tight space, and it's caught over the middle. Ortiz.
We see the patience there.
Looping it. It is caught.
Outstanding pitch and catch.
Well, Connor Blount got the word he was going in as the second half starting quarterback about 10 minutes before the second half kick. Needless to say, he was just as surprised as most fans out there. He sat down with our Lindsay Schnell earlier this week to talk about what it was like for his first action at Reese.
We are searching as best we can to find who the dueling number 12 to Kendall Hill would be at quarterback. Even the public relations people here at Oregon State are unaware.
What an introduction on Saturday. Were you expecting that? I don't think that Beaver Nation was.
I was not expecting it that early. I mean, I had gotten reps in practice throughout the week, but for it to happen in game 3, I was not expecting that. And obviously, most people around here weren't expecting to see that either.
And we're told it's Connor Blount, a freshman walk-on.
I heard that on the sideline, people, even your teammates, were so caught off guard they were just cheering on number 12.
Yeah. I got a lot. That's what I've been. I mean, they've called me QB, number 12, throughout camp, and I think now they know my name, I'd say.
Connor Blount. That's a wide open Bolden.
This kid is settling in. Maybe a surprise to us. He's got confidence in him.
Talk to me about being a walk-on. It's a really tough path for anyone to take. How did you wind up here, and what's it been like?
Definitely a walk-on kind of brings you down to earth a little bit, I felt like I was overlooked, and I knew I could play at this level. That's why I kind of took the jump to come here. And yeah, it was real tough. Honestly, it was real tough, but I stuck with it, and I knew that things were gonna start to look up. I put in a lot of work at this game, and I love this game, so I couldn't give it up,
Well, they roll him out. He lets it fly into a tight space, and it's caught by Collins.
What did Coach Anderson talk to you guys about afterward? And as players, what did you talk about?
He said we're a few plays away, and that's what we're really trying to build on. Is we are right there. No matter who's in there, we have a lot of talent. You got to take positives from a game like that, Yeah, we lost, but we're so close. And going into Pac-12 play, it's 0-0 for us. That's huge for us as far as what we can look forward to and what we have to look forward to.
And that was our Toyota interview of the week. We were talking a little bit about him on Talkin' Beavers, and none of the folks on there had any idea who Connor Blount was going into that game. Did you? Did either of you have any idea that he existed?
No idea.
No.
When you look at that decision to play him over Marcus McMaryion, Mason Moran, is there any rhyme or reason that you see why Gary Anderson put him in there?
I think one of the deals is, hey, let's go with a guy that maybe, is just going to kind of go out there and let it fly and not worry about the score or anything like that. And let's see what we got at the quarterback position. They know what they have with the other 3 guys, so why not see what the young freshman walk-on has. And Gary Anderson has, they know who he is because being from Wisconsin, they've seen him as a high school player. So I think there's a personal thing there where they know him as a player. And clearly he's a guy that's gone in and impressed the coaches in practice on the scout team. And that can go a long way.
Last night on Beavers Inside the Huddle, Thursdays at 8:30, Gary Anderson was saying that he's known his grandfather for years, since he started at Wisconsin. He's very well connected in the Wisconsin football program. So I think a lot of it is kind of knowing the demeanor of the kid. Like, you know him as he's worked his way up through camp, but you know that he's not going to be the type of kid who's just going to fold when the pressure comes, because I can't imagine what that first action must be like. I mean, you were a guy that you were thrown into the fire too as a young buck.
Yeah, I've seen it, and unfortunately I had a redshirt year, but still I got thrown in the middle of a game against Colorado, matter of fact, and it's kind of one of those things where, you're so wide-eyed, you almost have no idea, what you're doing, or it's just an out-of-body experience, and you kind of saw that with him. I mean, he was making throws that veterans wouldn't make, and it was working out for him, and that's really what got Oregon State back in the game.
And I think being a walk-on may have helped him in that regard of, like, Mason Moran, you want to preserve his redshirt. You want to keep him and see what you have for 4 years. But if he were to go in the game, there's an element of pressure that comes with being the highly touted freshman recruit, where Connor's just out there like, what do I have to lose? What, are they going to take my scholarship away that I don't have right now? Like, he just went out and he just played, and it showed. And being down 31-7 kind of helps make you a little bit looser in that situation.
Well, and again, Victor Bolden was talking about that he didn't even really know who Connor Blount was either when they're going into the game. I mean, in the context of the fact that he had never taken snaps with the first team, some of the first team players don't even know who you are. I mean, as offensive guys, what is the challenge? What is the dynamic like of having to find receivers that you maybe have never thrown to before?
Yeah, and frankly, he's probably spent, outside of the week prior to this game, he probably spent most of his time throwing to scout team receivers. Right. And it can be certainly a transition. But the thing is when you're out there and it's game speed, it looked like he was back on Friday nights, honestly. Right. I mean, he was letting it go, and he was on time and in rhythm. And I think, that speaks to his natural abilities as a player. But, it also speaks to those veterans coming in there and supporting a young guy.
Right. I'll say this, too. What a week to do it the first weekend of school.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes it a whole lot easier to walk around campus being like, yeah, I play football.
Yeah,
you may have seen me
in the second half playing pretty well. All right, we are talking more about the quarterback position in our Twitter poll. We asked you, should there be a quarterback controversy? Gary Anderson said, no, there's not, and you voted no as well, but it's kind of close. I mean, 58% say no, 42% saying yes. What do you guys think? I mean, is it inevitable that when a backup plays well, that there is some sort of controversy, especially if Daryl Garrettson doesn't play well, if he does play this weekend?
Yeah, I'm not buying the quarterback controversy piece. You look at the game, as well as Connor Blount played, it was also an element of Boise not, they're keeping their foot on the gas, to be honest with you. And so I think, it's a great thing that he got in there and played well, and it's going to certainly push Daryl Garrettson, but I think this is Garrettson's job.
Knowing that you have a competent and capable backup is an important thing, but having a starter that is confident that the hook isn't coming is even more important, because Daryl Garrettson is a guy, this isn't his last year, Right. He's going to want competition, but he also wants to have security that the hook isn't going to come in the second quarter.
Yeah, and there's a piece for me where that the offensive staff can help all the quarterbacks, but especially Daryl Garrettson. I think the offensive staff can continue with good play calling, running the football, utilizing Ryan Nall, a guy that, has found success, and that's going to be important this week.
We were talking about also on Wednesday, you look Pac-12 wide, there's a lot of, teams that have two good quarterbacks. I mean, is there something to be said for that in the conference that, to have two capable guys can go a long way?
Great coaching across the conference. That's what it comes down to. I mean, Pac-12 has got the deepest coach 1 through 12. I mean, I'll even put it up against the SEC, the ACC, the Big Ten. I mean, because there's 12 coaches that have all won at least 10 games. Yeah. At one point in their career, they have had 10 wins as a head coach, be it at San Jose State like Mike McIntyre or, Stanford. You've had 10 wins, and that says a lot about the staffs.
Yeah, I agree with that. And not just head coaches, but assistant coaches, really quality assistant coaches across the league. Places like Washington with Jonathan Smith, who's there as an offensive coordinator. You look at Colorado, brought in Darren Cheverini from Texas Tech. I mean, up and down the conference, head coaches, assistant coaches are really quality.
All right, so much more to come here on #Beavers Football. Colorado and Oregon State both going through rebuilding efforts in the past couple of years, how these programs are similar. But up next, we are breaking down a tough Colorado offense. And another look at Folsom Field as Oregon State gears up for conference play. Colorado certainly will be very tough. 3-1 after beating Oregon over the weekend. That game at 11:30 tomorrow. Heading back to the Colorado-Oregon State matchup, Sefo Lufau, it sounds like he'll be a game-time decision, but Steven Montez obviously playing really well over the weekend. What were some of your impressions of him?
I was really impressed with Steven Montez for a redshirt freshman to go into Autzen Stadium, only throw 3 incompletions the entire day, and then rush for over 100 yards. I mean, he's the first guy in Colorado history to throw for 300 and rush for 100. That's pretty impressive considering when you had Cordell Stewart.
Yeah, Cordell Stewart, not bad.
I mean, especially when you have a capable backup. I mean, if he's not 100%, you're not playing him, right?
I don't think they need to be honest with you. Their offense is firing on all cylinders, so I got to think that, if Sefo's not healthy, that Montez will be the guy.
He was impressive in a lot of ways, and one of the ways that he was most impressive was just taking everything that the Oregon defense gave him. Because that's easier said than done when you're a redshirt freshman quarterback in your first start. And Oregon's defense gave him a lot. I mean, it's not like they took away a whole bunch from him, but just to not get greedy at times and to continue just to take the baby steps down the field. I thought he played a phenomenal game against Oregon. And that's actually a credit to how good Sefo Lufau is, too, because there's no controversy, no rumblings of Sefo Lufau losing his job at Colorado because he is that good of a quarterback.
Yeah, Sefo's gotten off to an incredible start, and had he not gotten hurt against Michigan, there's a pretty good chance that they win that game in the Big House. And I just think the offense as a whole, we talked about earlier, Darren Cheverini coming in, you still have a group of guys offensively that have experience, and now you add Sefo in the mix, and they certainly helped out Steven Montez. But either way, Colorado's going to be all right at the quarterback position.
Right.
So if you're Gary Anderson, how do you prepare for both of them? A lot more film?
I think they're similar, but so you don't really have to invent this new game plan for them. You do need to just wrap up Steven Montez, because that's one thing Oregon just failed to do all game long, was just wrap him up. How many times do you see him just fall into a guy and then just keep on moving forward for 6 or 7 yards?
Yeah, and I think it's a unique challenge for Oregon State because it's different than some of the teams they've faced the last few weeks. These guys, whether it's Lufau or Montez, they're going to run the football, and so they're going to be utilizing the run game. You saw what Montez did last week against Oregon, and so now Oregon State defensively has to account for them, right. and that can be tough because they've got a lot of playmakers outside of the quarterback position.
Yeah, and some of those playmakers, the trio of wide receivers that have been playing exceptional this year. Devin Ross, Shea Fields, Bryce Bobo, top 11 in receiving yards a game. What makes these guys so scary? Aside from that one-handed, just the ability to catch the ball like that Bobo play this past weekend.
Man, I think what these guys do the best is they just bide their time and they wait their turn. And it is wide receivers are divas, and they're very hard to work with and keep happy. But all of those guys, they just kind of bring their lunch pail, and they get after it on the perimeter blocking because Lindsey, the running back, they create opportunities for them. But, I mean, they're just unselfish. I mean, that's the toughest thing is they remind me a lot of, Oregon's old offense. When they had, those no-name receivers on the outside that just all of a sudden popped and they were good. They kind of remind me of those guys because they'll make big plays. Do they do anything spectacular besides that Bryce Bobo catch, that one-handed catch?
Pretty insane, yeah.
It's just kind of do your business, find the soft spot in the zone, sit down in it, and catch the ball. It's your only job.
Yeah, I mean, this is a classic air raid offense. Darren Cheverini's from Texas Tech. I mean, they're going to spread the ball out to a number of guys. And so these guys, like you're saying, Dusty, I mean, they come to work, they're ready every play to get the football, and that's important because at the receiver position, it's easy to fall asleep if you don't think the ball is coming to your side, and I think these guys are veterans. They do a really nice job of getting open against press coverage, which is huge against teams that are going to play man and get up in your face, and so I think those are big pieces to me. They're ready to work, and they beat man coverage.
And this offense has been exceptional in the red zone. They've scored on all but 2 times this year. What do they do right when they get down there?
Yeah, this is all play calling from my standpoint. Watching Colorado the past few weeks, they do a really, really nice job of scheming things up in the red zone. They're gonna run the foot, even though they're a spread offense. They're gonna run the football inside the 5, and then when it's time, they're gonna drop back. They're gonna run pick plays. They're gonna run rubs, and they're gonna get their guys open in space. So I think, to me, the play calling has been phenomenal for Colorado.
And you don't turn the ball over.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a quarterback that doesn't throw interceptions when you're in the red zone. You don't fumble the football. You're going to be in good shape. You're going to get points. They got a good kicker, and even though their kicker got hurt the previous week, dude was perfect against Oregon. So, hey, if all you have to do is just not turn the ball over, and you should get some semblance of points in the red zone.
Yeah. All right, much more to come here on #Beavers Football. We are getting you ready for tomorrow's game against Colorado, but right now we are hearing from Colorado on their win over Oregon State last year.
It wasn't the prettiest game, but to finally go out there and grind one out and to get a victory is, it was a great confidence booster because there's so many times where we've been close and we just haven't been able to get the job done. And so it was great to, finally get one under the belt.
Sefo had a lot of defining plays in that game where people really saw his fight. We just got to keep realizing that that's what it takes to win. It takes a full 4-quarter game to win and to finish.
See the smiles on the faces, all the hard work, and that was exciting for our program at that time, and hope to have a lot of those this year.
And Colorado's upset over Oregon State last season was perhaps the first sign of their turnaround. Now 3-1, getting some votes for the top 25. Mike Parker taking a look at some of the similarities between Oregon State's rebuilding and Colorado's.
Thanks, Amanda. This is shaping up to be a very intriguing Pac-12 opener in that Colorado is a heavy favorite to win. The Buffaloes have risen up from a very miserable start under fourth-year head coach Mike McIntyre to be a team now that's talking boldly about winning the South, about winning the Pac-12 championship. That kind of rhetoric is unbelievable coming out of Boulder, Colorado, given that they're still just 3-25 in conference play after the win over Oregon last week. But they're doing it primarily because of veteran leadership that has gone through all of the ups and downs, and mainly downs through the first 3+ years in the McIntyre era. This is the most experienced team in the conference, laden with juniors and seniors, and one of the more experienced and veteran teams in the country in that respect. So it's not surprising that, given Mike McIntyre's ability to turn a program around at San Jose State, that he's now been given enough time to appear to be doing the same thing in Boulder. And I think it gives Beaver Nation a lot of hope to take a look at Coach McIntyre, staying the course, staying after it, and in his 4th year, some genuine rewards coming to the Buffaloes and to Coach McIntyre's staff and players and that football community. And I expect that the Beavers are on a similar path now in year 2 with Gary Anderson. I think the Beavs will go in and compete well, but they're one of the younger teams in the league playing against one of the more veteran clubs in the country.
What parallels do you guys see between the two programs in their rebuilding efforts?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly been a tough road so far for Coach Anderson, but it was the same for Coach McIntyre at Colorado. I mean, they've been through the ringer, and so the early growing pains for sure, but quality recruiting classes, getting guys bought into the program. I mean, those are the similarities I see early on.
Yeah, and throwing those young guys to the fire. I mean, and just saying, we know what we are, we know where we are as a program and where we want to be, and we're not going to get there unless these guys get experience, because that's the number one thing when you have such young players. And these are all guys, I mean, Sefo Lufau is a perfect example of a guy that wasn't afraid to go to Colorado when things were horrible, and you get guys that are kind of gritty, and they play like a bunch of guys that were recruited by an 0-12 team that nobody really wanted to go to, and they've built it from scratch, and that's something special. And I think that is what you see with Coach Anderson's recruits too. They're guys that, Oregon State, it takes a special guy to go there and a special kid to be a Beav. And that's what the most successful teams have had, is kind of that chip on their shoulder.
So you feel like, I mean, really Gary Anderson has been able to get people to buy in? I mean, you think that they are on a similar path?
I do. And I think Oregon State may be ahead of where Colorado was.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of, once you get guys bought in, now you got to find the playmakers. And I think Oregon State actually has some guys, especially that brought in the past couple recruiting classes, that can be impact players in the Pac-12. And so it's a matter of, you got to solidify the quarterback position. I think they have a guy that they trust in Garrettson, but they got to make sure that he is that guy, just like Sefo Lufau was the guy for Coach McIntyre in Colorado. But solidify that, shore up the skill position players, and then you got a chance to compete.
And I think one thing that both of these coaches have done really well at is getting creative with the way you recruit. I mean, coming from San Jose State for Mike McIntyre, having the background at Utah State for Gary Anderson, and building those programs into 10-win teams and legitimate FBS football programs, you got to get very creative in how you sell your program, getting guys on campus, and evaluating talent, taking some flyers on guys, and I think both these coaches have done a great job at that.
And we saw, McIntyre's records, just a couple of minutes ago. The jump from year 3 to today seems to be pretty drastic. I mean, 4 wins last year. Now you're already at 3. I mean, what do you think is what is that jump there?
I mean, I think it's a testament to these juniors and seniors. I mean, guys that have been through the ringer, and I was fortunate to spend some time with Sefo Lufau during the offseason, working with him, and I saw a fire in his eyes, and being with him and the seniors, those guys want it bad, and they felt like last year they left some on the table, and I think they were very confident going into this season that they were going to get off to a fast start and they were going to compete, and sure enough, they have.
Finally believing. I mean, Mike McIntyre said it time and time and time again after that Oregon game. They said at the second half of the Michigan game, he was like, our guys didn't believe we could do it, and they believed that they could finish that game against Oregon. I think once you kind of get over these little hurdles over the course of a rebuild, that's the last one, is believing that you can finish those games.
Yeah.
All right, later in the show, we are turning our attention to the Oregon State offense. Seth Collins continuing to impress. We'll hear from his teammates on the job he's doing. But up next, Colorado's defense has been making life tough for opponents. What to watch for in tomorrow's game? We talked about Colorado's offense, but the defense playing very well this year, especially the passing defense. Top in the league, 18th nationally. What makes this group so good?
They're veterans. I mean, you look at their 3 seniors and a junior in there. I mean, they're guys that they've seen it all. I also think outside of the defensive back play, their front 7 has played really, really well. I mean, you're getting sacks, 2.5 sacks from outside linebacker Jimmy Gilbert. You're getting, multiple sacks from guys on the defensive line. So pressure from up front is crucial.
Yeah, you mentioned experience. I mean, the best experience for a defensive back is getting beat. And they got beat quite a few times growing up, but we've seen them literally grow up. I mean, you can talk to a DB, you can watch film with them, but until you get on the field and you can kind of feel it, you're not going to be anything. And these guys came in young, they came in raw, and they've grown up. And when you can make a quarterback feel uncomfortable, what feeling uncomfortable in the pocket's like. I mean, you start rushing throws and force quarterbacks into mistakes. I
mean, we're only 4 games into the season, but is this the best secondary in the league?
Oh, gosh.
I don't. That's tough.
Too extreme.
I don't know if they're certainly not the most talented,
right.
But again, that experience and confidence is a huge piece of playing defensive back, like you alluded to. And so I think they have confidence right now. They're rolling, and if the trend continues against Oregon State, you're going to talk about them a lot more.
Obviously, you mentioned their D-line being very good. When you look at the O-line play for Oregon State, how much does that factor concern you?
Big, huge. I mean, really big. You have a problem on the front 5 for Oregon State, because you're starting to mix and match guys, trying to figure out where they all fit in what position. It's a good and bad thing. It's a good thing because you're recruiting versatile athletes that can come in and can play all 5 positions. It's a bad thing that you're still trying to find this rhythm, and here we are entering the 4th game of the year. But I think a big key is Sean Harlow coming back. That's experience. that is a veteran. He is an anchor, and you can rely on him to mask a lot of problems up front.
Yeah, I think, Oregon State's got to stay out of long down situations. They can't drop back and pass the football. I mean, they got to run the ball on early downs. They got to stay in third and manageables, because if they do get caught dropping back, I think the Colorado defensive line is gonna get after Garrettson.
Colorado also has been exceptional with third down defense. If we take a look at those numbers, I mean, again, only 30% there for opposing offenses. And obviously Oregon State struggling on third down. I know Gary Anderson has talked about the struggles to keep plays alive. What do you think is kind of the solution for the Beavers there? I mean, when do you think about that?
I think it's just growing up, I mean, we've talked about that with Colorado. That's been the step. And, that's going to be what we talk about a lot with Oregon State. It's just we'll see them grow as the season goes on. I don't think 38% is bad for this defense where they're at right now and some of the offenses that they've played. Again, they've seen some pretty dynamic playmakers, and I thought against Minnesota they did a very good job of slowing down a quarterback that many believe will be a first, or I don't know who believes that, but many people believe it, first or second round pick. But then you have an aerial assault in Idaho State that I thought they did. They adjusted very well to. And then Boise State. As games go on, I'd like to see what their numbers are in the second half as opposed to the first half, because I'd assume they're a lot better.
Yeah, and I mean, third down's a mindset, just like being in the red zone. I mean, so you really have to attack third down with a confidence level to go out there and make plays, because they're going to be tough. It's going to be tough catches. It's going to be hard yards. And I think as young players, like you're saying, that is a little bit different. Whereas, Colorado on the defensive side of the ball, they're confident, they're playing fast, and they're getting after people.
Let's not act like the Colorado Buffaloes are the 85 Bears, though. I mean, Oregon still moved the ball very well against them.
All right, coming up a little later in the show, we'll get these guys keys to the game. But coming up after the break, we are talking Seth Collins. What makes him go?
Eric Powell gets the kick away, and Victor Bolden takes it a couple of yards deep and comes out to the 10. Bolden hits a seam at the 20, outside to the 30. Bolden 35, 40, right sideline, has a chance. 40, 35, 30, down the right sideline. Not only a chance, he'll take it all the way. Victor Bolden, 100-yard kickoff return. Touchdown, Beavers.
Beavers fans love that. That was our flat tail brewing damn good moment of the week. And take a look at that. Victor Bolden is actually in the top 4 of leading kick returners in the nation. Second, obviously that touchdown there helps pad those stats a little bit. But how impressed have you guys been with Victor Bolden? Because he took a little bit of a heat in week 1.
I've been incredibly impressed overall with Victor Bolden throughout his career. I mean, learned from one of the best in Brandon Cooks. He's a guy that is certainly a dynamic playmaker, but, teams have known that. And until Seth Collins has emerged early here and Jordan Villeman gets going, everybody knew that Victor Bolden was going to be the guy. So I think it's a matter of him just getting untracked, and I think last week was a big piece for him.
Yeah, he took a lot of heat after the Minnesota game just because he had a couple drops. But, I mean, it's like fans want to forget that he had an incredible catch for a touchdown in that game too. He has had one play in every game this year that has been a big momentum shifter. And like this one here, and the best part is the official blocking the final line of defense for Boise State, who ran right into him. But he has had an explosive play, the fly sweep, 92-yard touchdown against Idaho State, that kick return. He's had a massive play in each of these games, and you can tell the whole team feeds off of it. And as Seth Collins establishes himself a little bit more, Victor Bolden's going to be that much more explosive.
And Gary Anderson talked a little bit about this week. Obviously, people are going to start trying to kick away from him. I think Mike McIntyre talked about just wanting to kick it into the end zone, only touchbacks. How do you deal with that if you're Gary Anderson as far as trying to get him in the right spaces? And
I mean, again, that comes down to the offensive coaches really being creative. They've done a good job, like Dusty alluded to, with the fly sweep, giving him touches in the run game. You throw screens to him. You find different ways to get him the ball outside of just the kicking game, because teams are gonna move away from that.
And it's a blessing and a curse when you have a kid that fast, is that it takes time to get downfield, and it takes time for your quarterback to step up into the pocket and deliver a strike downfield. It's not like Daryl Garrettson can, in just 2 seconds, throw a 40-yard bomb. So I love the way that they have found ways to make him a viable asset, be it in the screen game, in the fly sweeps, because the explosive plays don't have to be him running a post or him running a fade on the outside. they have done a great job. And once teams start kicking away from him, it's obviously going to get a little bit harder.
So Bolden is the team's second leading receiver behind Seth Collins, who just had his first 100-yard game as a receiver. Here's what some of his teammates had to say about his growth.
Seth has fit in the receiver group perfectly. He looks like a natural out there. Like he's been playing it for a long time. He's a hell of a competitor. He adapted very, very quickly to route running and releases and catching.
He's able to basically do it all. Like he's one of those utility players, and people kind of got to see that in the Civil War game last year, where he could throw the ball, he can run, everything you ask him to do.
So he's going to make a lot of people miss, and I think he'll do stuff to outrun people, make a lot of plays doing that. So I just feel like his game is going to get taken to a new level.
And we are breaking down some of his key moments in our standard TV and appliance play breakdown. Seth Collins, what does he do to make it difficult on defenses?
He plays receiver like a quarterback. He's smart. He's smart. I mean, and having that experience as a quarterback, you know how to read a defense, and then he's just a freak of an athlete. I mean, that's a tough thing to do. I say play receiver like a quarterback. Alex, I don't think you could quite go out there and play just like him. But he is so smart in the routes and translating it to his body. That's a tough thing to do.
Yeah, you look at, across football, former quarterbacks that have become receivers, Julian Edelman, guys like that, there's something about a quarterback that's athletic enough to play the receiver position that makes him really special. Terrell Pryor right now, there's all sorts of guys. And I think, that Seth is one of those guys that has the athleticism, but he's intelligent and he knows how to get open. And then he makes the plays, at that kind of point of no return.
Have you been surprised at how quickly this transition has worked out?
Yes, I have been, because he just stepped in right away, and you saw those flashes in the Minnesota game where everybody kind of went, is Seth Collins the best receiver on the team right now? Because it should be Victor Bolden. It should be Jordan Villeman. And then as Idaho State game, you went, yeah, he might be. And then Boise State said, yes, Seth Collins is the best receiver that they have right now. And I think a lot of that is because you do have two really good guys that you have to account for as well in Villeman and Bolden.
Yeah, I think defenses are keying on some other guys on offense. You got Ryan Nall, who's a good back. And so now you get Collins out there. He's doing some different things. He's coming out of the backfield. He's running mesh routes. He's doing all sorts of different things, coming from different places. That's a challenge for defenses to key on.
All right, up next, our ingredients to victory, how our analysts think Oregon State can beat Colorado. Stick around. Thanks for sticking around. Remember to catch a full wrap-up of the game next Wednesday on Talkin' Beavers. Nigel Burton, James Dockery, and myself will break down the Colorado game. Lindsay's out on assignment. Join us every Wednesday at 7 p.m. And now it is time to get to our Papa John's ingredients to victory. Remember, if the Beavers score a touchdown in the game, you win the following Tuesday. With Touchdown Tuesday, just use the promo code Beavers7 for 50% off your order at papajohns.com. Dusty, let's start with you. What are your ingredients to victory?
All right, my first one is 4.5 yards per carry. If the Beavs get 4.5 yards per carry, that's going to be a massive key to success. On the surface, doesn't look like it's all that much from their 3.9 that they already average per carry, but that's with 6 yards per carry against Idaho State. And then the second one is contain the quarterback. That is keep him between the tackles, because either if it's Montez or Lufau, those guys are great on the run, and if you can get them on the edge when they're running the football and carrying them, if you keep them between the tackles, you're going to have a lot of success.
All right, next up, Alex.
My first one is align and assign. And what I mean by that is alignment and assignment from the defense. You saw versus Boise State, who offers up a ton of different formations, a bunch of different motions, different things. There was trouble getting aligned correctly, and that led to big plays for the Broncos. So with Colorado's tempo, which is a different challenge, getting it aligned correctly, figuring out your assignment on defense, and getting up there and making the play, I think is crucial for this Oregon State defense. The second thing for me is utilizing Seth Collins. He's a guy that if you get him in different positions, whether it's out of the backfield or at the receiver position, he can do some different things. Early against Boise State, they utilized him on a pass, a double pass. They utilized him coming out of the backfield on a play action, and that led to an early score. But then late in the game, they didn't get quite as creative, and I think the offense got a little stale. So let's see Seth Collins in some different scenarios.
All right, obviously everybody's really excited about Colorado. Colorado is very excited about Colorado. They think they can win the Pac-12. Will they finish in the top?
Like
of the Pac-12.
the whole
They
thing?
think they can win the whole thing, and obviously there's some very good teams.
Yeah, they have a shot in the South. I mean,
But can they win the South?
Yeah, I think they can.
Pretty
if
open.
they do that, I guess they can win the whole dang thing.
Yeah, I think Colorado, for me, this game is going to be big, but then next week against USC, that's a game they could have won last year if Cepho hadn't gotten hurt. So if they can get those two, now you're 5-1.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great night.